Hi, everybody. It's Carol. It's June 15th. And I've been thinking this morning about what does it mean to keep the main thing the main thing. This morning, two pieces of mail came in through my email box. And one of them was that barber shops and hair salons are reopening today in the state of Michigan. And that is really good news for a lot of folks. Even though they'll need to make appointments and there'll probably be a backlog of people wanting to get in. Those who need to touch up their roots can get that taken care of. Um, my dear young friend who likes to have his hair colored green or purple will get a chance to get his curly locks colored again. Myself, I get upset when my hair gets too thick and too shaggy. I'll get a chance to get my hair cut. It has seemed at times really important. And so it's a relief, not only to many of us that this gets to happen, but for barbers and hairstylists who have been without work since mid-March. It can be, pardon the pun, a main thing. But the other news item that came right after the announcement about the hair salons and barbershops reopening was the Supreme Court decision that came out today that says that LGBTQ persons cannot be fired based on their sexual orientation. In a 6-3 ruling today, written by Judge Neil Gorsuch and signed on by Judge Roberts, and also signed on by what are considered the four liberal justices, so it was a 63 opinion. They said an employer who fires an individual for being homosexual or transgender fires that person for traits or actions it would not have questioned in members of a different sex. Sex plays a necessary and undisguisable role in the decision to fire, exactly what Title VII forbids. Therefore, Title VII will now indisputably extend protections to over 8 million workers nationwide who have always been under the threat of being fired based on their identity. So for many folks, that is great news, and it is the main thing. Can you imagine working in whatever your job context has been all your life and being able to be fired at a moment's notice based on your hair color, based on your skin color, based on any other identifiable trait that you have, blue eyes, brown eyes? Can you imagine being able to be fired on the spot indiscriminately based on one of those traits? That would be obviously a case of discrimination. And what the court has said today is that whether you identify as lesbian, gay, transgender, bisexual, queer, or questioning, you cannot be fired based on that orientation. One of the women who was a part of this lawsuit that made its way up to the Supreme Court was a woman named Amy Stevens. She was a funeral director here in Detroit, and back in 2013, she realized that she needed to transition to become the woman that she is. And so she let her coworkers know that she was going to have gender reassignment surgery. She felt safe in disclosing that to them before she had that done. But she was fired. And her boss at the time said or believed that coming to work dressed as a woman was not going to be acceptable. That is, she would have to, as part of gender reassignment, surgery or the process, usually a person needs to dress and publicly identify as the gender that they are, in this case, as a woman, even before they have the reassignment surgery. And so she was going to come to work dressed appropriately as a woman, and her boss said that coming to work dressed that way was not going to be acceptable. And in fact, he went on to say that um, that she was fired because she was no longer going to represent himself as a man. So she was fired. She went through the gender reassignment surgery. She stayed married to her wife, and unfortunately, she died this past May from kidney disease and complications that she had experienced apparently for many years. Um, but here now her cause has been vindicated. That persons who identify as male or female, which is something that happens deep within you, and that is not a choice that you make. Someone who identifies as male or female and chooses to affirm or confirm that identity with transition surgery cannot be fired based on that. So, barbershops and hair salons, a Supreme Court ruling protecting one's job status, which is the main thing. Well, as Christians, we are told and we believe that to love God with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength is always the main thing. Always. To love God with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength. And to love our neighbors as ourselves is also the main thing. Love God, love our neighbor. The main things. Everything else trickles down from that. So I think we're at a point in our country where we need to consider, each of us needs to consider, as a society, we need to consider, are we treating the main thing as the main thing? And I think what these past several weeks have shown us, and if we think about it, the past several years have shown us, the past decades have shown us, the history of our country has shown us that the main thing these days is how people whose skin color is white, like mine, and those whose skin color is black or brown, like others. The main thing is, how can we all get along? How can we be brothers and sisters as children of God with one another? How can we bridge the divides that separate us? And the main thing is that these are not only personal issues, that is, where one person has a gripe or a beef or a prejudice or a racist idea about somebody of another skin color. But these are systematic issues also. We, as persons with white skin, live in a system, this is hard for folks to believe, live in a system where our skin color is preferenced over those who have a different skin color. It's indisputable. It's indisputable. And it's unequal. We have advantages and privileges that people with a different skin color don't have. And the main thing is, it's time for us to confront those truths and to work towards eliminating that division. eliminating that breach between us that leads to violence, that leads to bigotry, that is expressed in lower wages and lower opportunities, lower household ownership, all those sort of systematic things. So what I worry about, I'm almost done, what I worry about is that, especially in the church, there are many of us who would prefer not to keep the main thing these days, who would prefer to give their attention to other priorities and not do the work. Friends, this is going to be work. To not do the work of overcoming our own biases, to recognizing our own privileges, to examining our own selves, and working in our society to change the way things are. We're afraid. We don't know what that means in terms of how the future will reveal itself. The loss of control that we might sense that we'll have can be frightening. But we need to go back to our main thing, which is by loving God and by loving our neighbor. We are faithful to the very core of our lives. And that's what God calls us to be faithful to the very core of our being, which is God. So I want to encourage you to not turn away from this hard work. If nothing else, to become curious about whether there is work for you to do, and to not give an easy answer like, I'm not racist, or I've never said a bad thing about anybody, or it's not my problem. If nothing else, become curious about how you might play a part in this. I believe this is the main work of the church these days. And so I apologize to you who think I'm a broken record about this. But Jesus was sort of a broken record also. He said the same things over and over again in different ways, but he said them. So I'm going to close with a prayer right now, and I hope that you will take these words to heart, at least listen, and go get your hair cut if you need to, get it colored, go to your colorist. But remember, that's not the main thing. All right. This prayer, again, is from the daily prayers that come from Northern Ireland. And I'm going to read you the prayer that is based on Matthew's Gospel. The verse is Matthew 5:24, which reads, "Leave your gift there before the altar and go. First be reconciled to your brother or sister, and then come and offer your gift." And here's the short prayer. God of reconciliation, you demand much of us, inviting us to tell truths by turning towards each other. May we leave our trinkets where they belong and find our treasure by turning towards each other. Because you needed this, because we all need this. Amen. Folks, say your prayers, wash your hands, stay isolated, be safe, and I'll see you soon.